Welcome back to Coinage Era. Today's coin comes straight from the final days of World War II. The French 1 franc of 1944 is not just a small aluminum coin, it is a surviving witness of one of the darkest and most transformative periods in modern European history. To truly understand this coin, one must step back into the chaos of World War II, when France was divided, occupied, starved of resources, and yet still clinging to its ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. This coin carries the emotional weight of a nation fighting to survive. By 1944, France had endured nearly 4 years of German occupation. Cities were scarred by bombings, railways destroyed, industries dismantled, and the population lived under strict rationing. Ordinary objects, bread, fuel, metal, even paper became precious. Coinage, something once taken for granted, turned into a challenge. The 1 franc of 1944 emerged from this environment of desperation and resilience. Unlike pre-war French coins struck in bronze, copper, or nickel, this wartime franc was made from aluminum-based alloy. This choice alone tells a powerful story. Strong metals were redirected toward the war effort: weapons, ammunition, vehicles, and machinery. Civilian coinage had to adapt. Aluminum was lightweight, cheap, and available, perfect for survival, not luxury. Every gram of this coin reflects wartime scarcity. The year 1944 itself stands at a turning point in history. It was the year of the Normandy landings, the slow liberation of France, and the collapse of Nazi control in Western Europe. Coins minted during this period circulated among people who had lived under fear, censorship, and loss. When someone held this 1 franc in their hand, they were not just paying for goods, they were participating in a fragile economy struggling to breathe again. The design of the coin was deliberately symbolic. On the obverse appears the calm, dignified female figure representing the French Republic. Her expression is not triumphant, nor defeated, it is steady, composed, and enduring. She wears a laurel wreath, a classical symbol of victory, hope, and continuity. In a time when France's future was uncertain, this image reassured citizens that the Republic still lived. Around her portrait is the inscription, République Française. These words carried immense significance during occupation. While political control was fractured and authority contested, the idea of the Republic remained sacred. Even under pressure, France refused to erase its republican identity from its coinage. This was quiet resistance, struck in metal. The reverse of the coin reinforces this message. Dominating the top is the national motto, Liberté, Galet Fraternit. During World War II, these words were more than ideals, they were acts of defiance. Liberty was restricted, equality disrupted, and fraternity tested. Yet, by engraving these words onto everyday currency, France reaffirmed what it stood for, even in its weakest moment. At the center of the reverse stands the denomination, 1 franc. Simple, bold, and functional. This was money meant to circulate widely among ordinary people, workers, shopkeepers, families surviving on ration cards. Surrounding the denomination are branches, symbolizing strength, renewal, and national endurance. Beneath it lies the date, 1944, a year etched permanently into history. Collectors today often underestimate the emotional and historical weight of this coin because of its modest value. But rarity is not always measured by price. The true value of the 1944 French 1 franc lies in its story. It is a coin that passed through hands trembling from air raid sirens, hopeful after liberation announcements, and exhausted from years of uncertainty. This coin also reflects the transitional nature of France in 1944. Authority shifted from occupation to liberation, from survival to rebuilding. monetary systems had to stabilize quickly. Coins like this franc became tools of recovery, restoring trust in daily transactions. Without stable coinage, post-war recovery would have been impossible. Even the wear commonly seen on these coins tells a story. Aluminum scratches easily, dents quickly, and ages visibly. Every mark on a surviving specimen is evidence of circulation of being used in bakeries, markets, and railway stations during one of history's most turbulent years. For numismatists, the 1944 1 franc is a key example of emergency wartime coinage. For historians, it is a tangible artifact of civilian life under occupation and liberation. For storytellers, it is a perfect symbol of quiet resistance and national identity. When German forces entered France in 1940, everyday life changed instantly and brutally. By the time the 1944 1 franc coin was minted, the French population had already lived for years under strict occupation, censorship, and fear. To understand this coin fully, one must imagine the environment in which it circulated, an environment where survival itself was an achievement. Occupied France was divided into zones, controlled directly or indirectly by Nazi Germany. Movement was restricted, curfews were imposed, and food shortages became a daily reality. Families queued for hours for basic necessities, relying on ration cards that often provided far less than needed. In such conditions, money did not represent comfort, it represented access to survival. Coinage played a crucial role in this fragile economy. Banknotes were scarce, trust in paper currency weakened, and coins became essential for small, everyday transactions. The lightweight aluminum 1 franc was ideal for this purpose. Easy to produce and widely distributed, it allowed commerce to continue even when the nation itself seemed paralyzed. Fear was constant. Air raid sirens echoed through cities, trains were frequently sabotaged or bombed, and uncertainty ruled daily life. People carried coins like the 1944 franc in their pockets while listening to secret radios, whispering news of Allied advances, and hoping liberation would come soon. Each coin exchanged, hands silently during moments, filled with anxiety and anticipation. The occupation also reshaped moral and social structures. Black markets flourished as official channels failed to meet basic needs. Coins circulated not only in legal markets but also in hidden exchanges for food, medicine, and fuel. The 1 franc coin became a tool not just of economy, but of resistance, helping civilians navigate a system imposed upon them. French identity, though suppressed, was never erased. The continued use of Republican symbols on coinage was deeply meaningful. Even as propaganda tried to reshape loyalty, the presence of Republique Francaise on coins reminded citizens of who they were and what they stood for. Every transaction reinforced a shared, unspoken defiance. Children grew up seeing these coins as normal, unaware that they were living through extraordinary times. Adults, however, understood their significance. Holding a coin minted under occupation was a reminder of loss but also of endurance. France might have been controlled militarily, but its spirit persisted in small, everyday objects. As 1944 approached, hope slowly returned. Rumors of Allied landings spread through whispered conversations. Resistance networks grew bolder. In this tense atmosphere, coins like the 1 franc of 1944 circulated alongside hope itself. Each exchange carried an invisible question: will tomorrow be different? The occupation economy was unstable, and inflation loomed constantly. Lightweight aluminum coins were sometimes treated with suspicion, yet they remained necessary. Their very fragility symbolized the fragility of the time. Unlike heavy pre-war coins, these felt temporary, just like the occupation everyone hoped would soon end. This period forged a deep emotional connection between people and their currency. Money was no longer abstract. It was survival, resistance, and patience compressed into metal. The 1944 French 1 franc embodies this experience perfectly. Understanding life under occupation transforms this coin from a simple collectible into a human artifact. It connects us directly to the hands that trembled while holding it, the markets where it was exchanged, and the unbreakable hope that liberation was near. The year 1944 changed France forever. While the French 1 franc was being minted and circulated, the sound of war was reaching its climax. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy, launching one of the largest military operations in human history. For France, this moment marked the beginning of liberation, but also a period of extreme chaos, destruction, and uncertainty. As Allied troops advanced inland, French cities became battlegrounds. Railways were bombed to disrupt German supply lines, bridges were destroyed, and entire towns were caught between retreating German forces and advancing Allies. In this environment, the French economy functioned only at a basic survival level. Coins like the 19441 franc circulated in markets operating under fear, hope, and confusion. Minting coins during such a time was itself a challenge. Infrastructure was damaged, transportation unreliable, and authority fragmented. Yet coin production continued because money was essential for stability. Without functioning currency, liberation could easily descend into economic collapse. The humble 1 franc played a quiet but critical role in preventing that outcome. For civilians, liberation was not immediately joyful. Food shortages continued, prices fluctuated, and danger remained high. However, something had changed psychologically. People now held the 1944 franc with renewed meaning. What once symbolized endurance under occupation now symbolized transition toward freedom. Resistance fighters emerged openly. Collaborators fled or were arrested, and the French tricolor returned to public spaces. Through all of this, the same aluminum coins passed from hand to hand. They became witnesses to celebrations, revenge, rebuilding, and mourning all at once. The symbolism of the coin grew stronger after liberation. The motto Liber Gallet Fraternit, once quietly defiant, now felt prophetic. These words were no longer distant ideals, they were becoming reality again. The coin had survived the occupation and crossed into a new France. Many soldiers, French and Allied, alike encountered these coins during their movement through liberated towns. For them, the lightweight franc was proof that civilian life had endured despite years of war. It represented continuity. France had not vanished. It had waited. Economically, 1944 was a bridge year. Pre-war systems were gone, and post-war systems had not yet formed. Coins minted in this period belonged to neither world fully. This liminal identity makes the 1944 French 1 franc historically unique. As liberation spread across France, the coin continued to circulate until newer issues slowly replaced it. But even as it faded from daily use, its story deepened. It had been present at one of the most dramatic turning points of the 20th century. When the guns of World War II finally fell silent, France faced a challenge as great as the war itself: rebuilding a shattered nation. Cities lay in ruins, industries were broken, families were displaced, and trust in institutions, money, and stability had to be restored. In this fragile post-war world, the 1944 French 1 franc continued to circulate, quietly supporting the rebirth of everyday life. Liberation did not mean instant prosperity. Food rationing continued well into the late 1940s. Inflation remained a serious problem, and the French economy struggled to find balance. For ordinary citizens, coins like the 1944 franc were still essential. They were used to buy bread, vegetables, transport tickets, and small necessities. These coins became companions of recovery, not just survival. Unlike grand commemorative medals or precious metal coins, the 1 franc was humble and practical. Its aluminum composition, once a sign of wartime shortage, now symbolized adaptability. France had learned to work with what it had. This philosophy defined the post-war years' practical solutions over luxury, endurance over pride. Many people who had lived through occupation associated this coin with memory. Some remembered hiding coins during raids, others remembered using them in black markets, and many remembered the first time they used the same coin freely after liberation. Objects like this franc carried emotional weight far beyond their monetary value. As France rebuilt its monetary system, newer coin designs slowly entered circulation. Yet the 1944 franc did not disappear overnight. It coexisted with newer issues, bridging generations. Children growing up in the late 1940s and early 1950 South still encountered this coin, often unaware of its wartime origins. To them, it was simply money. To their parents, it was history. The aluminum coins aged quickly. They scratched, bent, and oxidized far more easily than older bronze or silver issues. This physical aging mirrored the emotional exhaustion of the post-war population. Yet even in worn condition, the coin remained functional just as France itself did. From a numismatic perspective, this period defines the identity of the 1944 franc. Coins that survive today often show heavy circulation marks. Collectors sometimes undervalue them because of this wear, forgetting that condition itself tells the story. A heavily worn 1944 franc may be more historically honest than a pristine one. As years passed, France entered a new era of modernization. Economic growth returned, industries revived, and Europe slowly moved toward cooperation rather than conflict. The old wartime francs were gradually withdrawn from circulation, replaced by stronger metals and new designs that reflected confidence rather than survival. In the decades that followed, collectors and historians began to reassess wartime coinage. The 1944 French 1 franc emerged as an important artifact of civilian history. Unlike medals or military equipment, it told the story of ordinary people, how they lived, traded, waited, and rebuilt. Today, when this coin appears in collections or online markets, it often seems modest and inexpensive. But its true worth lies in context. It is a coin that lived through occupation, liberation, and reconstruction. Few objects experience such a complete historical journey. For a YouTube audience, this makes the 1944 franc exceptionally powerful. It is relatable. It was touched by millions, not a privileged few. Its story belongs to bakers, workers, mothers, children, resistance members, and survivors. It belongs to France itself. As time moves forward and eyewitnesses disappear, coins like this become storytellers. They preserve memory when voices are gone. The 1944 French 1 franc is one such storyteller, quiet, worn, but truthful. As we reach the end of the journey of the 1944 French 1 franc, the coin transforms from metal into memory. What began as emergency, wartime currency ultimately became a historical witness, one that silently observed fear, courage, collapse, and rebirth. Few coins in modern history carry such a complete narrative within their small, lightweight form. From a collector's perspective, the 1944 franc is often misunderstood. It is not rare in numbers, nor is it made of precious metal. Yet rarity is not always about scarcity, it is about context. This coin belongs to a very narrow window in history, when France stood between occupation and liberation, between silence and voice, between loss and recovery. Many collectors chase shine and perfection, but the true soul of this coin often lives in worn examples. Scratches, bends, and faded details are not flaws, they are evidence. Evidence that the coin lived, circulated, and mattered. Each mark is a chapter written by human hands, navigating one of history's most uncertain times. Historically, the 1944 French 1 franc represents civilian endurance rather than military power. It was never meant to impress. It was meant to function. And in doing so, it supported millions of lives through transition. That alone gives it importance far beyond its denomination. For modern audiences, especially younger generations, this coin offers a powerful lesson. History is not only preserved in monuments and museums, it survives in everyday objects. Coins like this remind us that ordinary people experience history daily, quietly, and often without recognition. As France moved forward, this franc faded from circulation, but it never lost relevance. Today it serves as a bridge between past and present, allowing us to physically touch a moment that shaped the modern world. Holding it is holding a fragment of lived history. For a YouTube channel like Coinage Era, this coin is the perfect storyteller. It connects global events to personal experience. It proves that even the smallest objects can carry the weight of nations. The 1944 French 1 franc teaches us that survival itself is a form of victory, that ideals can endure even when challenged, and that history does not always shout, sometimes it whispers, patiently waiting to be heard. This is where the story ends, but the memory continues. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Follow Coinage Era for more legendary coin stories, hidden histories, and powerful journeys through time.